it matches the color scheme.
It does.
It does. It works really well.
Like what a month to
it's just hardcover, Richard. Oh, nice.
Yeah, I got a special edition.
Beautiful.
Damn.
You're so
Very
pretty.
very chilly.
I love
But we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to our live show. Today, we're going to be discussing Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell, our July book of the month. I had to think about that for a second.
Where are we? I don't know.
It feels like a blur. It's all a blur. Yes, so yeah, indeed.
Oh, here we go. Now I can hold up the cover.
Haha, there we go.
Oh my god, 2 a.m. Laura committed. Oh my god.
Oh yes. Good lord.
I'm impressed.
I'm so impressed.
I hope
I'm
you're
in bed
awake
by 9.
and not because you can't sleep and this was on.
That's what I mean. Yes.
You actually care.
Yeah.
But hi everyone in the comments. How are you doing?
Hello.
How are you this fine weekend?
How's your lockdown going if you're in lockdown?
Mm.
We now all four
Now
of
in
them.
lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah, all of us are in
single
lockdown.
one. All of us.
I have my fingers and toes crossed, Rochelle, that you'll come out of it quickly.
3 days,
Please.
is it? Did you say 3 days?
Yep.
3 days.
3 days,
We went in 4 p.m. yesterday, and then we're meant to come out at 4 p.m. Tuesday, but we had 6 cases that have they have no idea how the transmission started. So I'm gonna guess that's not gonna stay that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of bad that I'm so desensitized to New South Wales numbers that 6 is like not too bad. Like,
No,
at all.
We'd love to have that.
I really
Yes.
do.
70, man.
I mean, I did just look up how many we had today.
Oh yes.
Oh no. Oh yeah. Uh-oh.
239.
Mhm.
And 159 of them were infectious. They were in the community infectious. Yeah. No.
Woo, go people, we're making great choices.
Great. It's all those protesters, I reckon. Oh well.
Mhm.
Oh yes. Yep.
Yeah, I have a friend that went to the Melbourne protests, and I was like, "You're a fucking idiot." It was just like, it must reevaluate friendship.
Yeah. Like, I understand the government's not been dealing with this whole set of lockdowns as well this time, but that's not the way to do it. It's making it longer and worse for everyone. It makes me so sad. Anyway, on a lighter note, we are here to
Let's
discuss
forget about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Book that we all really liked. It's going to be such a positive discussion today.
I'm so
Indeed.
excited.
Yes.
So
Happy.
So we will begin by talking about our general thoughts to start. Those of you watching, tuning in, let us know what you rated the book. We'd love to know. If you haven't yet read the book and are just sticking around for the spoiler-free section, we can summarize the book for you. Anyone want to give it a go, or shall I?
It's been so long since I finished.
Okay, go, Kaz. I believe.
Yeah, I believe in you, babe.
So this is quite a light space opera, queer romance. We love that. So we basically have a prince and what's
A count?
count? Prince
Yeah.
and a count. The count's husband passed away, and another arranged marriage is happening between the two of them. But there's, at first, the previous husband, it seems like an accident. It was like a space shuttle thing, failure, something happened, crashed. Very sad. Or was that exactly what happened? Dun, dun, dun. Murder mystery ensues.
I think it's like the murder mystery is sort of, it's not quite prominent, but it's there.
Yeah.
Very character driven.
It's a very character-driven one. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, my interpretation was that the two main plot points were the political situation and the interpersonal relationship between the two main characters, which is all, like, considering they're married in the first chapter for political reasons, that is very much the driving force of
Yes. Yeah.
the book.
Exactly.
Yeah. Honestly, like, the murder mystery part of it is almost entirely superfluous. Like, it's great, and I really enjoyed that segment of the book, but you could take that out and lose almost nothing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Very true. So what did we rate the book? General thoughts.
Else, you want to go first?
Let's go clockwise.
I'll pay attention. I gave it 4 out of 5 for me, like a very solid 4 out of 5. I'm gonna ramble. I'm trying not to do, like, if anyone follows me on Goodreads, I don't actually do number star ratings anymore. But for this one, this was a very easy 4 out of 5 for me. Like, I can isolate why it's not a 5 out of 5. But I so 4 out of 5.
Fair.
Rochelle.
I gave it 5 out of 5. It has been a very long time since I have had a physical, visceral reaction to a book. And, like, as I said in our chat, like, there was one point in the book, because I listened to it on audio, I had to pause my audiobook and just do a little happy dance about what was happening. And I just, like, I couldn't. I had to, like, take that moment and just be like, yes.
We'll talk about that moment in spoilers, I believe. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I think I might know which section, but I can't confirm.
But yeah, so, like, the amount of joy, like, I think this book, I just read it at the right time, and I just, like, I needed it. It watered my soul.
Yeah.
So yeah, I gave it 5 stars.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Sophia.
Me. I actually, so yesterday I rated it 4 out of 5. But, like, after kind of, like, just sitting on it for a bit and after our, like, Sydney discussion, I think it's going to be a 4.5 if I had to, like, give it a decimal.
Narrow it.
Yeah. Like, obviously, like, I'll go into why it's not a 5, but yeah, like, kind of, like, along the same lines with, like, this book came at the right time. I don't really read a lot of sci-fi, mostly because I'm not necessarily drawn to that genre. But because this one was really soft for sci-fi and, like, much more focused on the interpersonal relationships, I really loved it. I loved all the politics. I loved, like, the dynamics between a whole bunch of characters and having all these little twists and turns. I loved the dialogue. The dialogue is excellent. There are so many fantastic one-liners in this. And I'm glad you loved it. I'm glad we did a good choice. And I also loved, there's a lot of things in here, like, to do with, like, gender and sexuality and things like that I thought was explored very brilliantly as well. But yes, that is my general thoughts without spoilers. I loved it. It was great. The two main characters are complete chaotic messes, and I love them so much. So yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. Before I jump into mine, I just want to say I can see a couple of comments asking for, like, favorite romance books. I think maybe we can touch upon that a little later in the live show if we want to, but we'll come back to that once. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I think I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5 stars as well. I really liked exploring those relationships and seeing how it developed. I thought it was very interesting. The politics was very fascinating. I kind of wish we got a little bit more in terms of the world building and fleshing out a couple of bits and pieces that tied into the story and, like, the political landscape a little more. But overall, I thought it was really fun. I started annotating. I didn't do it for the last half because I was in bed at 2 a.m. focusing on finishing the book. But I did annotate quite a lot at the start, and just so many of Kim's lines. He was light of my life. Like,
iconic.
I just want to squish his face.
Seriously.
Squish.
He's like, he was charismatic in all of the right ways. Like, for being a prince and for someone who's, had a sling of lovers in the past, it wasn't like in a sleazy way or anything. He was very charismatic and outgoing and sweet, and just chaotic, messy charm. We do love it.
We felt the love guy. For sure.
Amazing.
Yay.
All right.
I was like, what do we do?
What do we discuss first? Shall we start with the romance? the relationship, the main bays.
I have so much praise for this novel. I really no. I'll tell you what. I'm going to start with the reason I gave it 4 stars and not 5.
Okay, go.
That is the world building. I just realized that I put my username on my profile and I spelled it wrong.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Good job, Alice. Good job. Proud of you.
Follow me on Twitter, you guys. It's like a guessing game of where I am. Yeah, the reason that this was a 4-star book and not a 5-star book for me was because of the world building, and just because I personally wanted more of it. Like, I thought it was really well done. It was clearly very thought out, and especially when they were talking about the political stuff, there was clearly a lot of care that went into the creation of this world. The only problem was we saw very, very little of it. And I just have some very mundane questions, like how long does it take to get from Kiem's homeworld to Janen's homeworld? Like, is it a long trip or just a short one? And is it like, are there forests? Like, there's a scene with a bear. I'm not going to go into it. I have a lot of questions about where that place is in relation to where a lot of the other stuff is happening. Are there other animals there? Yeah. So I came away from this book. I can hear an echo. Can you guys hear an echo? Do I need to get headphones?
I can't hear anything.
Okay, great.
I'm hearing a little bit, but
okay. When I stop talking, I'll mute myself and find headphones while the rest of you talk. And you'll be like, oh, finally on topic. Yeah, I came away from this book feeling very warm and happy and satisfied. But all of my questions are about the world.
I agree.
So if I get this world, I'll absolutely be there.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
I did have
100%.
I had some questions about like physical space as well, in terms of how far things were apart, where they were in relation to other things. I did think, there was like little bits and pieces seeded through to give us a sense that this is quite an alien planet to ours, like the animals and the landscape and like minerals and I can't remember the stuff in the mountain that makes the dead zones, you know what I mean? Things like that. And I was like, it would have been really interesting to get a little bit more of that. And the one main kind of world building thing I wish we got more of was diving more into what exactly the remnants are and their role in everything, because it's such an important part of the political landscape and these treaties. And it's something that is very important to the auditors, but I just didn't get a sense of what if you asked me what the remnants are, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I wouldn't be able to tell you what they did exactly. I just it just was a bit too vague for me. It was something so important. I thought that should have been fleshed out a bit more.
Yeah, like I agree. There was definitely some world building that I would have really liked for it to be a bit more fleshed out. With the remnants and stuff. But at the same time, like if she makes another a book, a series set in here, like I would love to see the next steps in the events from like a side character's perspective, and just like not have Keen and Janine as the focuses, but like still have them as like integral parts of the plot. Like I would be very down for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love that. I feel like the relationships are just such a core part of the story that I didn't think about a lot of the world building stuff until later on, because it just the romance, those relationships are so at the forefront, and it's definitely like the focus of the book. It's not.
Yeah. And it's why I came away still being very satisfied. Like, yes, I had questions, but the story itself, beautiful.
Absolutely.
Bonjour. Eve.
Were you going to say something? Was that you're preparing to speak? Yeah.
I'm Italian. I just use my hands. This is how I talk. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something, but like I do agree that there were parts of the world that I would have liked to have seen more of. But I also understand why she or why the author left parts out of it. Like, because obviously, like, I think from what I understand, it's a standalone, not a series. So the way that it was told, I understand as to why, like, there were parts that were taken out or parts that were not elaborated on. And very much the driving force of the entire thing was the two characters, was their relationship and how they were navigating things after being rushly married, which I'm a sucker for an arranged marriage trope. Like, I love that, and I also love when there's like high stakes involved, because I'm like, oh, these two don't know how to like interact, but now they are in a legally binding like contract. How does this work now? What are they going to do? How are they going to navigate this weird situation when one thinks the other one's grieving and the other one thinks that he's repellent to him? And I'm like, oh my god, so many things happening. I've never been so excited to read about a miscommunication in a relationship.
I know, right? I think that trope was done really well here, and because it made so much sense for the characters. It wasn't just a case, like, because they made assumptions about each other based on their own personal histories and previous relationships. So it was very logical how it was fleshed out in that regard. And yeah, I've never been less irritated by miscommunication before. It did get to, like, and it also was very satisfying when those conversations happened, because you're like, finally, they're understanding each other and they can move forward in a much healthier way.
It was frustrating. It was frustrating because we knew that they were miscommunicating, but it wasn't frustrating because it could be easily solved. And I think that's a big difference between how this was handled and how other miscommunication plots are handled in books that I've read.
Yeah. I mean, because I feel like they needed some, especially for Janan, I feel like he had some like personal things to come to terms with and work through before he could kind of take the next step. So yeah, I think it was done very well. Very surprised by how much I didn't mind that.
I
think it's also
that like got me, like, this book combined some of my favorite tropes, arranged marriage, there's only one bed, with some of my least favorite tropes, miscommunication, and somehow still made it work in such like a organic, natural way. Like, if this was the only possible way that this could progress, this is the only path they could have taken. And like, it just felt so natural and real, and that is like a really authentic space to be in.
Yeah, exactly. I think I said something yesterday. I was like, I really loved how organic everything was and how it developed in a very natural way. And that's all I had to say on that.
Yeah, because I also feel like with Janan's past, it wouldn't have felt right if the miscommunication thing had been handled differently or wasn't as much of a thing. Like, considering everything that's happened, it was very, I feel like, a very real response.
Yeah.
And yes, it definitely got to the point where I was like, oh my god, just like, because there was a couple of scenes where I'm like, is this where they're gonna?
Is this the time? Is this the time when things are gonna start coming out? We're gonna start like growing together as people. No, okay, I'll still wait.
Because I thought that was very real as well. The fact that there was a couple of attempts at getting real and hashing out and trying to communicate with the other one, but they're still in things are still very new and very awkward, and they need to work through their own stuff. So I thought that was done well as well. The fact that it took a few tries.
Yeah. And like the whole the political aspect of their relationship meant that they did need to have some of those conversations quite early on. Like, how are we going to make this work? How are we going to present this to everyone? How are we going to pull all of this off? Well, like, they were both still like quite respectful of each other, which is another thing I really enjoyed. Like, Kiam gave Janan his own space. Like, Janen's the one moving in to Kiam's apartment, and it's just like, no, you have your own space. Like, I'm not gonna force you to act like we're married in public. Like, you have your grief, you work through that, and I'll just be chilling. Like, you take the time you need.
Yeah, I really loved that. Very sweet.
That's sweet. That's sweet.
I'd love to talk about, could be a very brief conversation, how well the pacing of the whole book was. For a book that was primarily relationship and politics based, there was never a point where I was bored or wanted to put it down. I was quite happy to sit and just keep reading. And I mean, the only thing that stopped me when I was in the last like half of it was the Matildas playing a very boring and then exciting game. But the made history. It didn't drag at any point. And that, I think, is, I mean, personally, I think that's something that's quite difficult to do in a character-driven story, because it's all about how they develop and how they communicate, and they weren't communicating, and we know this. But I was so impressed. I mean, obviously, we've not read anything from this author before. We had no idea how that was going to go, and I just think she did a fantastic job.
Yeah, a phenomenal
really
debut.
Agree.
So good.
I was also just very happy that, because if I try and read before bed, I fall asleep in like the first 30 minutes, because I just get so sleepy and tired. But with this one, last night when I was reading, I stayed up until about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, which I always think is a good sign that the book is like well paced and has my attention. And it was, I mean, to be fair, it was happening with everything at the end, culminating. I thought it was getting very, very exciting. But I always just really love when a book can keep me up, keep me awake, and to drag myself to sleep. I'm like, wow, this is a new experience.
Well, considering I didn't read the book until this week because I just hadn't been in a reading mood, and then once I picked it up, I was like, I can't put this down. Like, I just can't put it down. Just kept reading it. When my cat was hungry, I was like, nope, I'm reading. Don't meow at me. I'm busy. She's like, no, feed me. So yeah, it was very hard to tear myself away from the story. And something that I wanted to talk about was the way that the author, I literally just had a brain moment where I don't know what I'm saying. The way that the author navigated gender in the book, and the way that characters like essentially presented themselves with their pronouns and things like that was through like what were they called again? Were they like talismans, tokens?
Yeah, like
that.
adornments, like kind of like jewelry or bits and pieces in their hair.
To just, and as soon as that's like, as soon as it's seen, as soon as it's like identified, the pronouns are immediately like used, and so it's so seamlessly done. And something that I also thought was interesting was how, despite gender, despite what pronouns people went by, like if you were a prince, you were a prince. Like that was kind of what the thing was. And the emperor was just an emperor. Like it didn't matter what gender they were.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was really fascinating. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I was going to say, and it was quite seamless. Like I know as conversations around gender and gender identity and sexuality and all of that change, and like they are changing a lot. In the past 20 years, we've developed a whole new vocabulary, and the way that it can be included in fiction can often feel quite clunky, but it didn't feel clunky at all in this book. It was seamless, and it was seamless from things as innocuous as, I think right in the beginning, Kiam makes a throwaway comment about how he's not gender exclusive. And that's it. You know from that he could be ending up with anyone, he's interested in anyone theoretically, but also that it's a norm. It's a normal thing for people to have these conversations, and it was never in your face about it. Like maybe it reinforced it a few times too many, but also that's for us, and we often have these conversations and we often read these kind of books, so maybe for someone else it's a good amount of times to reinforce that, but it never felt clunky.
No, agreed. And also the fact, obviously, we're in the we're in the Empire, the Ishkut.
Ishkani.
There we are. It touches upon how gender is expressed there, but it also just very briefly touches upon how things are expressed elsewhere. When there's like ambassadors from different planets. Yeah, I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, and I liked that like the ornamentation like would show up in details. Like you would be having a conversation, like we'd be having a conversation with someone, and the author would describe the way that they push their hair back behind their wooden jewelry and stuff like that, and you would just be like, okay, we're using those pronouns for this character. Like it became such like an ingrained part of your brain as you were reading it. Like you didn't need to stop and think maybe like, okay, so wood is male, flint is non-binary, that kind of thing. Like you knew it and you could see it in those details and then just be like, cool, we know that about that character. Like it didn't have to be a big thing. It was such like a nice small detail.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that just reflects how it is such an easy and seamless thing within the culture too. The fact that they can just at a glance understand what their pronouns are.
And I also really enjoyed the fact that nowhere in this book, because it was so seamless, there was no point where someone was misgendered. There was like a comment once or twice where like depending on the subtlety of someone's ornamentation, you could like have to look for a bit to figure it out, but at no point was someone given the wrong gender identity, which is not something you would usually see in a book that discusses gender identity in this way.
Yeah, exactly. Well, is there anything else that we wanted to chat about before we dive into some more of the spoilery parts? I think we've covered the main bits.
Yeah, I think so.
Fab. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty details. Okay, so what's the scene where you were like,
Yeah, Rochelle, tell us.
Obviously, at one point in the book, Kiam falls in a river while there's a bear, and then like they cuddle in the tent. I was just like,
scary body walk.
what's happening?
There was only one bed, one tent,
There was only
one
bed.
sleeping roll.
They cuddled before wall.
Yes.
Yes. So
Oh my
that
God,
I
that's
just
so
like.
funny.
I was listening to my audiobook. I had to pause it and I like did a little dance, a little scream, and my partner was just like, "Are you okay in there?" And I'm like, "It's happening."
It's all
My
happening
partner's just
now.
like, "Right, book thing. Okay, I'll leave you to that."
Yeah. Oh
But
my
yeah.
God.
But so good. Such joy. Such joy was had.
Els, what did you compare that tent scene to again?
It just reminded me because they were stranded in the snow and they needed to huddle for warmth. It reminded me of that scene from that Twilight movie. I can't remember which one. I know it's not exactly the same, but I wanted to bring it up because
How dare you
Why
take
not?
my beautiful tent scene? How dare you?
it's
Nah,
obviously
it's
the superior scene.
This is the superior scene. Like,
Obviously.
Obviously, but I'm just like the vibes. Snowstorm, tent, body warmth. That's enough. I would like to compare that. Thank you. Comparative literature. That's not what I study, but sure.
also like the bear. Like, what's the bear?
What the hell?
I thought it was so interesting how like some sort of general idea of an animal across planets is just called the same thing, like, and how Kim's like, what do you mean bears have fur? They're like lizards. Janen's just like, I don't understand how you call this a bear. Why is this a crazy bird with a razor sharp beak a dove? I thought that was really interesting how they didn't have the new names for them. They're just like, oh, this is reminiscent of this, but they terraformed, so they would have created them. Monsters, absolute monsters. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting touch.
I want to know about more of them. I would like an illustrated guide.
It has 6 legs. That's all I know.
Just out of curiosity, like obviously there was no place for it in the story because it would have like interrupted the pacing. But if that's what he calls a bear, what is a kitten? What is a lizard? What is a fish?
What are they?
How does this reflect on the ecosystem? How does this reflect on agriculture? Like, what do they eat?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just coming up with more questions now. I
Yeah.
have a lot of economical questions.
But we really do have
Everina
to
Maxwell,
thank
do
the
you want to
bear.
email me?
We really do have to thank the bear because the bear made them cuddle together and then have that really important conversation when they woke up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like so beautifully done. And like,
and then they kept warm in
and then they were warm. I was like, guys. And I like, and just the way everything shifts after that, like they're just so much more comfortable around each other. But like, and it's also just like they're still learning things. And I was just like, you know what? This is like such, going back to the same words, such an organic relationship that was built on trust, and I loved it.
Yeah, because you could really see how a lot of trust and respect was there, but there was this kind of barrier holding them back. And as soon as that came down, they just felt so much more comfortable and at ease with each other.
Yeah.
How cute! So cute!
So
How
good.
cute they are at the end is great. So great.
Bless.
Yeah, I also really enjoyed a couple chapters before it, the flyer scene where Kiem like does something, like performs like a dare that is normal on Janen's planet, like dipping the wing into the water, and it just being like that cute, fun, like early relationship, just like experience sharing. And I just like, it makes me so happy.
You're just like, I want to squish them.
Squish. I love them so much. I just can't. Like they're the best. I love them.
They're the best. They're the best. How I thought it was very it was quite hard. I'm gonna go into the part with like the whole abusive relationship. I thought that the way it was handled was really delicate, and it was handled in a way that was not, I guess, like, what's the word? Like, it wasn't exaggerated, and it wasn't something that was so in your face, but it was difficult to read as well, because like, you know, they've reached a point where the two of them have reached a point where they're trusting each other, and then it's revealed that Janen was in like his previous relationship with his partner, who's now deceased, was abusive. And it's just it was quite eye-opening, because there's all these hints dropped along the way that you're like, okay, there is obviously something that's restraining him from being quite open in a new relationship. And it was really hard also to like read the sections like later on when he's in the Tau field and he's like being fed these memories that were like quite traumatic. But I also did think the author wrote them in a really delicate and respectful way. Like nothing to, I can't think of the exact word, but yeah, you know what I mean.
It wasn't there just for like the attention and the drama. Like it had a role.
It wasn't a shock factor. Yeah, it wasn't a shock tactic. It was yeah.
I think it was just really seamless as well, how she wove the effects of that previous relationship on Janen throughout the start, especially. Like there were so many responses which indicated like a red flag response, or like in response to a red flag from a previous relationship type thing. There were just so many bits and pieces. I was like, oh no, he's been through some stuff, or like his response here is like that of someone who, like a victim of abuse. So it was done. It was subtle at the start and woven in really seamlessly, so it wasn't too confronting. Like I feel like it warms you up to the idea quite nicely. Like it's not too yeah. Oh,
and it really like, when you look at it, when you dig down into it, like abuse is fundamental in both of their characters. Like if you look at the way that the Emperor and Kiem interact, you can tell that there's a level of what you would consider child abuse, like expecting a child to act as an adult and not make mistakes purely because because of who they are and their position, like that is one of the definitions of mental and emotional abuse for a child, and something that comes up like pretty frequently in my work, unfortunately. Like, it was nice to see how they, like, both of their experiences informed how they interacted with each other, and knowing that, like, this is a blocker for both of them. Like, they've both experienced a level of abuse in their life, and like have had reactions to it, and like making those giving each other leniency in the way that they're responding because of how they have previously been treated. I thought it was like it was really well done by the author. Like, it didn't feel tacky or melodramatic at any point. Like, it wasn't there as like oh no. It was like, again, going back to,
like,
yeah, it was real, it was authentic, it was very organic to how their personalities formed and how their interactions with others went.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Because Kiam's definitely a people pleaser because of how that all shaped out. Like, the way that he interacts with everyone, like especially reporters, would come from that experience as a child.
Very true.
One thing I did really love about Kiam as a character, aside from the fact that we get a very clear idea of how earnest he is just in his behavior. Like, he doesn't always do the right thing, but he always has these very deliberate good intentions, like his behavior with Jainan, his behavior with talking to other people, his behavior with responding to the Emperor. But at the same time, he's a messy bitch and he loves drama.
Such a messy bitch.
Such a messy bitch.
So messy.
I especially loved how this sort of culminated near the end of the book, where he was offered this job and he basically went, it would just be chaotic to have me in this position. Yeah, okay, I'll do it. We've seen that behavior from him, and then he's just reinforced it at the end, and it felt I loved that scene. I loved it a lot.
That was so funny.
I mean, the characterization we've talked a lot about, and it's obviously fantastic, but that was just one of my favorite things about how his character evolved. Like, we saw him evolve, we saw him learn, we saw him change, but we also knew the whole time, this is a character we can trust. This is a character who's going to mess up, and I think I said earlier in the live stream, he feels very human. And what I mean about that is just that he doesn't feel constructed. He feels very natural. This may not make sense, but like the way his character and Jainan's character and every other character is constructed, clearly they all have layers to them and they all go through a development, and it shows, and that was just fantastic. I mean, another one I absolutely loved was I may pronounce this wrong, Jirad? I listened to half the audiobook and just didn't get up to her before I switched to the ebook because I knew I would read that faster and I just wanted to get through it. But her character is hostile when we meet her, and then she gets all this new information, and so her behavior changes and she develops. And I like her because she's a little bit morally ambiguous for a while. And then by the time you get to the end, she's still morally ambiguous, but she's morally ambiguous with a desire to support the people, like the characters that we want to support.
Yeah.
So she's still, And I thought she was really well done, even though she was a supporting character. Same with like Belle.
I loved Belle.
I love Belle.
Please give me a whole book of just Belle, please.
I would love to say, I want to say Belle as like
boss bitch.
Yeah. I still think that one of my favorite scenes in this book was when she basically tells Kiam, like, I literally lied to you this entire time. I've been lying this whole time, and you just can't seem to understand right now. So catch up, let's go, get over it. Like, I'm a radar. Like, I literally lied to you. Move on. And he's like, but wait, what? Like, oh my God,
he's like,
talk about this.
This makes so much sense.
No time. I thought that was, and I love how she's like, there is no sick grandma. There was no sick grandma. And he's like,
There was never a sick grandma.
there was never a sick grandmother.
Oh.
I thought, yeah, she was so cool. Like from the moment that I met her, I was like, nah, she's gonna be badass. I love her. She's gonna be so cool. And then I did think it was so shady, not shady, but like I did think it was weird how she's like, my grandma's sick, I might have to take time off. And he's like, just go now. And she's like, no, not yet, it's fine. And then she's like,
I was like, something's going on here. But at least it wasn't in like, she wasn't like a traitor or anything like that. It made sense. I was glad that it's that, because I feel like it was potentially setting up to question her trust, but it wasn't the case.
I did also.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to change topics, so you go.
No, I was gonna talk about. I did like how, in terms of the politics, how like the corrupt people were slowly revealed throughout it. Like Aaron, like basically being like, I was behind the entire thing, and I'm like, when you first meet Aaron, you're just like, oh, like hey, like seems pretty cash, seems pretty like on board with trying to find the murderer and all these kinds of things, and then it's like a full 180, and you're like, oh.
I did think, he was like overly helpful. He was like way too helpful, especially when Janen and Kiem went to like the base and was like, Tom was embezzling, and he's like, what? I'll give you everything you need to find out more information. I was like, interesting, very interesting. This is your best friend,
and you didn't know? Live.
Yeah, I was like,
no
he's involved.
You don't know.
Yeah, you were involved. I was going to quickly jump back to J-Rod and say, I agree, Alice. I really liked her character. And I loved how you saw growth there. But when she found out the new information, she's like, I'm sorry. And Janen's like, what? And she's like, I'm not going to say it again. But
not again.
Let's move on from here. Like, I really...
sorry, but okay. That was really good.
Yeah. Just to touch back on Kiem's earnest list, like the fact that out of that crash ship, he took the school's trophy because it was not replaceable. I was just like, such a sweet.
Oh, and then when he like hands it off to what's his name, Haren, he's like trying to come in and ask him all these questions and be like, what the fuck did you just do? It's like, oh, actually, yes, you can be useful. Give this to the school for me. And then she's like, la la la, off to the medic.
And I love how when you see it from Janen's perspective versus Kiem's perspective, like Janen is absolutely convinced that Kiem is just sitting there politely nodding as people talk. But from Kiem's perspective, he's like fully invested. Like he's so curious about what everyone's doing. And like he's actually like very much into the conversation that is happening and is just like, yes, tell me more about this part of the process. Just so good. Such a good character. I adore him.
I think it does such a good job of showing like different people's perspectives and how they perceive what happens around them. Obviously, again, based on their experiences. I thought that was very interesting to see.
Yeah.
I also did like how Kiem was really interested in what like Janen had to say, and especially like how intelligent Janen was with like how like when he at the very beginning where he's like, this guy has like a PhD, he has like all of these qualifications, and I'm just some dum that didn't finish high school. I'm like, and then like when you have the scene where Janen meets the professor and they're having these like conversations, and like Kiem's just there like, oh my god, like this is so fascinating, like look at him just like open up and like brighten and just like start talking about things that he's really passionate about. Like that scene and like that's like that moment was like very indicative of like what Kiem's character would be like with Janen, and like how he's like he is interested in what Janen thinks and what he loves and all these kinds of things. And I also loved how he gave Janen that space to just come out of his shell and like talk to the professor and do all these things that like he would be interested in. That was really sweet.
And because it also shows just how kind of switched on he was in terms of like Jane, like he's very observant of Janen's behavior, and he was like, oh, he could see from Janen's expression that Janen thought he was bored and worried that he'd stop the conversation. So instead, he removed himself to let them continue talking about their fields. Just so much respect and care.
So much respect.
Yeah, and I love like he was so encouraging for Janen to just like get in, be a part of the study, like do whatever you want to do, fully support you. Didn't be like, oh, but your responsibilities as a diplomat. He's just like, no, go do the thing.
Just do it.
Be happy. We'll worry about the rest later. We'll worry about that diplomatic dinner at another time.
Oh,
yeah.
It just broke my heart how Janen was like, oh, he wants me to do this because this will help him in this way. And Kiam's just like, no, I just wanted you to be happy and have your own thing.
I just want you to, just blossom and do what you want. No, when who was it when Janen says to Kiam, like he's like, wanting to go to like a monastery or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
It was like,
we can have time apart. He's like, oh.
Like, what do you mean? Oh god, they were just
so good.
The miscommunication trope really just hit me hard with this.
But it was, I think it worked well as well because it wasn't like miscommunication and then them like trying to sabotage or undermine the other person. They were still going about it and like trying to do what's best for the other person, but just completely misunderstanding what they needed at that time. Yeah, it wasn't like an antagonistic response. So I think that also helped with the trope rather than them just destroying the relationship. They were still trying to do what's best for each other. They just completely missed the mark.
They really did. Yeah.
They tried so hard.
They did try so hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just like Kiam like going and being like, we need to get you a flag. We need to hang your flag in the apartment. And he's just like, oh, I have one. I just
the clan. Yeah.
Like we couldn't hang it in our other one. And he's just like, what do you mean we have one? And they put it up and it's like, it's beautiful. I love it.
It's too big. It takes up too much space. It's like, you've literally got nothing decorating the place. Have this wall.
He comes in with like a suitcase that's half full. And he's like, what do you mean this is all you have? Like, what?
So
heartbreaking.
Much heartbreak. Yeah.
So much heartbreak.
Oh.
Yeah, I loved this book. It was great. It was such a good time.
Yeah, Kiam, like after finding out about Tam, just his immediate switch into he did what?
Yeah, he did.
Just like.
But then I also understood like Janen's reaction to him kind of confronting him about it.
Yeah.
It's such a private thing.
It was such a private thing, but I also felt like it was like a defensive response because he's like, I can't talk about that. Like, it's such a traumatic time for him that his immediate reaction was just to be like, do not talk to me about it. Like, do not bring it up. And I was like, baby,
and I feel like he probably also had some defensive response in regards to Tam as well, because he'd spent so long being in that situation and like having to defend or like pretend in the public that that's not what was happening.
Yeah.
So many lingering effects of trauma.
Yeah. And then like Janen gets taken and Kiam's like, what? Where is my husband? Where did you get my husband? How dare you?
And when he goes into the machine and Janen just doesn't believe that he's
like, I'm going
real.
in. I was like,
you're a figment of my imagination. Oh God. Or he thinks he's the interrogator. It's just like, stop doing this to me. It's like, no, I'm real. How can I tell you I'm real?
Yeah.
And like, what's something we only know? He's like, everything here's made of my memories. So this isn't going to work.
God damn it. So good. So good.
I loved this. Oh, it was such a great choice, guys.
Oh,
great choice. We did so well.
Yeah, mini heart attack when they first thought they'd come out of the machine and Tam was there. I was like, what?
Twist? He's not dead? And then it's like, wait, no. I panicked. I panicked. I was like,
no.
I'm like,
I was
it's
like,
like,
no,
at
no,
the
no.
end. There's no way that how do we sort this
How
out
do we
now?
resolve this?
Yeah, how do we
Mhm.
get past this? That's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all good, guys.
Yeah.
It was all fake. It wasn't
I
real.
was just like, don't you dare do this. Don't you
Mhm.
dare do this when like Tam showed back up. I'm like, no, cannot handle.
Too much,
Disgusting.
man. Too much.
Garbage man. Get him out.
Get him out.
Throw him
Put him in the
bin.
trash.
In the trash.
In the trash where he belongs.
Yeah. Yes. Everina Maxwell, if you're watching this, can you give us a whole book with Belle? Would love.
Yes,
See
please.
why.
Would
Thanks.
appreciate.
With cameos from these two. Like, just like
Yeah.
in the background.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's all I want.
Yes. Exactly that.
Yes.
Only that.
Mm.
But
I have nothing else to say, I think. I think I'm done gushing about the book.
I think we've
Maybe.
covered everything. Do you have anything else? Was that you
No.
thinking, or?
No, it's just me like looking at my book, just being like,
I love you.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Amazing.
Very happy.
Love that.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
just reread it, you know. It's a good time.
Straight
Yeah.
back in.
Oh, did we want to answer these questions?
Yeah,
in the
that's a
chat?
great idea.
Yeah, I've actually been thinking of answers. I've written down a couple.
Sure.
So I had to look up what clean romance was.
It means no
I've
smart.
heard the term no smut. Okay, I
No
saw
sex.
a definition that was no smut, no swearing. Not 100% sure if the ones I'm going to say have swearing, but there's because I don't really seek them out. It's my understanding that a lot of clean romance books are actually like Christian lit, which I don't touch. So I'm not very
I just
helpful.
thought of it as like contemporary kind of rom-coms that don't
Yeah.
have like a bit of a
Well,
fade to black situation.
I did a quick look through some in my ebook app. So If I Never Met You by Vary McFarlane. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
that one is
one.
a very lovely one, and it doesn't have any on the page sex. I'm just gonna write that down. Sophia, you've read The Flatshare. Did The Flatshare have
Nah. The flat share is it's clean, and I loved the flat share. Would recommend.
Flatshare is great.
Yeah.
Love it.
Highly recommend.
Actually, let me look through. Let me see.
Oh my gosh, autocorrect, shut up. Like
That's.
That's
Let me look through my books.
Very is not a word. No, it's someone's name. So If I Never Met You, The Flatshare was the other one we said.
Mhm.
Yep, the flat share.
By Beth O'Leary.
No, You Deserve Each Other has a sex scene.
I think there's a series by an author called Lucy Parker called The London Celebrities. Those ones are quite cute, and I don't remember there being sex scenes. I just did a quick look through the ebook, and I couldn't find any. So they're worth a try. The first one is called Act Like It. Sorry, I'm typing and talking at the same time, but they're basically about British actors and thespians in the London theatre scene who end up in various romantic situations together. So I think those ones are clean. So I'm hoping that fits the bill.
I would recommend like Paige Toon. She writes some pretty clean contemporary rom-coms, romances. She doesn't it's really wholesome romances with her. So Paige Toon is always a good choice.
Mhm.
I'm just looking through my read list because I'm trying to remember what else there is.
I think the most recent romance I've been reading is Bridgerton. I finally read the whole series.
Oh my god.
It's not clean at all.
No, that's a good one.
No.
Don't think that one is clean at all. I mean, look, I think you're asking like the wrong
The wrong
people for
people.
clean
Yeah,
romances.
the wrong group. Definitely the wrong group.
Because
Yeah, I definitely haven't
Yeah.
read any. I don't
this
think
is the incorrect crowd.
Not because we have anything against clean romance, just because it's not something we seek out ourselves. So we do have to quite like really think about what we've read that constitutes
Not that we'd have anything against it. We just
Yeah, nothing
read it.
against it. Just we don't seek it out. Fantasy romance, on the other hand, I highly recommend Trick by Natalia Jasta and the sequels to that one. So those are self-pubs. Putting those in the chat as well. They're just very gorgeously written fantasy. That's not very well, Natalia.
Do I recommend Furyborn?
No, you don't.
Yeah. It says, what's your favorite?
Lightbringer, guys. Absolutely just. No. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Okay, Kristen Callahan is one of my favorite romance authors, and she actually has a fantasy romance series. The first book is called Firelight. It's set in Victorian London. And if you're into urban fantasy, I know there's one called Dark Fever by Karen Marie Moning, which I didn't love, but I didn't think it was too bad. Putting that one in the chat as well. And the last recommendation I have for this question is actually a podcast, not a book, but it's a romance podcast called Fated Mates. And they have an episode specifically about fantasy romances. So I really enjoyed the episode, and it might be a good listen because it will give you a lot of recommendations. So I'm going to put the podcast and the episode in the chat as well.
I'm just trying to think about something that's not Furyborn, because I'm just now being like, oh my god, that was a fucking roller coaster. I'm trying to think of recommendations from my side.
Romance is not like the focus in a book for me generally. Like, I don't pick up a book because it is a romance. Like, there are definitely books that I've read that I've enjoyed that have romance in it, but not specifically romance.
Well, there is a book called A Promise of Fire. I can't remember the author's name, but it is a trilogy. I read the first book. It's Amanda Bochette. That's the first book in this trilogy that is high fantasy romance. While I personally didn't love it, I know a lot of other people really enjoyed it. So that might be something that you're interested in. It might be your cup of tea. Yeah, I don't have any other. I don't think I have anything else.
I mean, I love the idea of fantasy romance, but the problem really with fantasy romance is that for romance to take the forefront, the world building has to fall behind a little bit, and that's why there aren't that many, because it's quite hard to build a balance where you're revealing enough of the world and not. And not obscuring the romance. And I think it's why, as a subgenre, fantasy romance hasn't taken off in a massive way, because while there are a lot of people who want to read that, the people who are writing it can only write so much, and the people who want to write it haven't necessarily figured out where they want to go and how they want to do it. The podcast episode that I put in the chat, they have a lot of recommendations, and they talk about what makes the genre, like what makes it a subgenre and how it works and how it doesn't. So it's also just, if you're not interested in reading fantasy romance, but you do want to sort of learn about it, it's a great episode for that as well.
Cool.
Yeah, I find that paranormal romance has more, because there is less world building to do. Like, you can make some basic assumptions about what's going to happen in the world, and therefore the balance can be a bit better.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I have nothing else to offer, unfortunately.
Yeah.
In that case, the August book of the month, I don't think any of us have a physical copy yet. No, wait, Michelle, you do, don't you?
I left mine at work yesterday.
Fair enough.
I was very upset. I got home and I was like, fuck.
That is like the worst thing, because it's like, damn it. Now I can't read. I have to go back to work where I don't want to go.
But the book we're going to be reading is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. Beautiful. Thank you, Els. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Els. You're the
Thank
best.
you, Google. Thank you, Google.
Yes.
Google. Google.
Very excited to read it. Cannot wait. And I think I haven't posted about it anywhere, but
Oh, wait, there's a question that just popped in.
yes.
Ooh.
I was just
we
going to say,
can
sorry.
quickly answer that one.
Yes. Sorry, before we jump into that.
Yes.
I think low-key thinking of also continuing with some little live shows for the Obelisk Gate and the Stone Sky, just because I know that people requested that in the 5th season live show last month. So we'll post about that on Twitter and stuff like that, and do that. It'll be an addition to the normal months.
Yeah.
But if anyone's interested in those. But yes.
I have a really simple answer for this.
Go, Els, go.
So getting back into reading is very, very different to getting into reading for the first time. And so it's a lot easier. To get back into reading, find something that you loved when you were younger and reread it. For me, and this is how I get out of a reading slump as well. I reread something that I know I love that I don't have to put a lot of effort into reading. Like for me, I reread the Gallagher Girls series by Ali Carter. I might reread Artemis Fowl. I might reread Skullduggery Pleasant. And these are all pitched at younger audiences, which means they're easier to read, first of all. But also, I know I'm just reading them for fun. I know I'm just reading them because I read so much for uni and I have to approach that with a very analytical mind because I'm doing a literature research degree. So it's not always easy to pick up a book and just read it for fun and just read it without it being a chore. But if I'm picking up a kid's book that I loved, that I know I loved, then that's a great way to kickstart back into it. And I mean, it doesn't have to be a kid's book. That's what I go for. But if you've been out of reading for a while and you know you read something that is an adult book or is anything really, reread something you know you love.
Yeah, reread a favorite is always a good way to get.
And that makes it a bit easier as well to rather than recommending specific books, it'll be catered to that person and their taste. Because I find we need a little more context for what kinds of things they might like.
But because if they just read nonfiction, then we're like, oh well, I don't have
a recommendation.
Yeah, so I don't have. I mean, I have the Bible, but I don't know if that's nonfiction.
It's a very contentious topic.
Yeah.
Sorry, let's not go there. Sorry.
No, don't start. How dare you?
I think it really just depends on the person and what they have read in the past, what their favorite things are, and just kind of redirecting them back to old favorites. That's always a great way to do it.
And I mean, if they're not sure where to go from the old favorite, it's just a matter of figuring out what you like about it. Is it a specific trope? Is it the author themselves? Is it just the genre in general? And that is a great way to then find other books to read.
Yeah.
Because you know more specifically what you're looking for than just, I know that they've read books.
Exactly.
That could mean so many different things.
So many different things. Oh, picture books? Yes, thank you. Possum Magic is truly iconic. But
Possum Magic, the Hungry Caterpillar. Let's go.
Hungry Caterpillar, yeah. I like that, watching reviews and remembering the feeling. I like that.
That's nice. I like that.
I must go and do that. Fabulous. All right. Well, I think that pretty much concludes our live show for today. So thank you everyone for joining us, tuning in, reading our lovely book of the month and chatting today. And thank you to my lovely co-hosts for the great discussion.
Great discussion.
I'm just going to go and scream about how much I love this book some more.
Yeah, good idea. Cool. So
stroking it, yeah.
It did well. It deserves pets. Good job.
Yes.
Many pets.
Many pets.
So I'm just looking at a calendar. We will be doing our live show on the weekend of the 28th and 29th of August to discuss our next book, But you can follow us on socials for more information about that a little closer to the time. All right, everybody. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your days, evenings, mornings, and see you later.